This is In the Loop. I'm Christian Bryant. Shout out to everyone who hesitated before turning on their Slack and email notifications after the holiday. We're suffering with you. Here's what we got for y'all. A few companies have taken big steps forward toward a COVID-19 vaccine. We'll have details on who will have access and when. Plus, frontline workers have kept our healthcare system and our economy up and running. We'll take a look at how some new government programs aim to give them a brighter future. But first, here's what you need to know right now.
We might see a surge superimposed upon that surge that we're already in. And when I give that message, I don't want to frighten people, except to say it is not too late at all for us to do something about this.
While plenty of us laid low for the holiday, the fact is we didn't all stay home on Thanksgiving. If you ventured outside your quarantine pod recently, health experts want you to chill out this week. Dr. Deborah Burke says if you saw anyone outside your household, you should act as if you were exposed and became infected with the virus. That means schedule a test and self-isolate until you get those negative results. According to the TSA, on Sunday, more people passed through airport security than any other single day since the pandemic started. In total, the TSA screened more than 9 million passengers from Friday to Sunday. Keep in mind that's only 40% of the travelers screened on the same day in 2019, meaning a lot of folks did refrain from major travel, but still not exactly what you want to see in the middle of a pandemic. Given the incubation time and how long it can take to test positive, Thanksgiving-related cases won't be reflected in the data for another week or so. On Sunday, hospitalizations nationwide surpassed 90,000 for the third time this month. That's according to the COVID Tracking Project. Today marks the end to a record-shattering Atlantic hurricane season. From Arthur to Iota, there were a total of 30 named storms, more than double that of a typical season. 13 of those storms later strengthened into a hurricane. 6 of those were considered major storms, meaning a Category 3 hurricane or higher. The final hurricane of the season, Iota, was a Category 5. This is only the second time in storm recording history that we had to dip into the Greek alphabet to keep naming these storms. This year saw 10 storms rapidly intensify, which is defined as storms' wind speeds strengthening 35 or more miles in just 24 hours. Scientists warn that this could be the new norm, with mounting evidence that warmer ocean waters from climate change can affect the intensity and speed of storms. The killing of Iran's top nuclear scientist has reignited tensions in the region. At the funeral of Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, Iran's defense minister called the scientist's killing an act of terror and vowed revenge. Fakhrizadeh was considered to be the country's driving force behind its nuclear weapons program for the last 20 years. Top Iranian officials blame the Israeli government that has carried out other attacks in a similar manner. Though Israel hasn't taken responsibility, analysts have expressed some concern that Iran might strike back against Israel or even its closest ally, the US. If you've been following the incremental vaccine developments like I have, you know that two groups are inching closer to a deliverable vaccine: the partnership between Pfizer and BioNTech, and separately, Moderna. The latter sought out emergency use authorization from the FDA today, meaning it could be one of the first vaccines to be distributed. Newsy's Lindsay Thies has more.
The need for a COVID vaccine is greater than ever before as cases surge and hospitals are overwhelmed in much of the U.S. Drug maker Moderna says it's sending all of the data and findings to the FDA from its phase 3 trial of a COVID-19 vaccine, requesting for emergency use authorization. The shot, made with the help of the federal NIH, was 94% effective in trials and showed no major side effects.
The vaccine is expected to be highly effective at preventing symptomatic disease and very effective at preventing severe outcomes from the disease.
The vaccine comes in 2 doses, the initial shot and a booster 28 days later. It uses new gene technology called mRNA or messenger RNA. When injected into a patient, the RNA enters healthy cells where it makes the coronavirus spike proteins, and that prompts an immune response. Pfizer's vaccine candidate is also up for emergency approval. Both vaccines will have to go through a series of regulatory red tape on the way to approval. Pfizer's vaccine reviews hearing is set for December 10th, and Moderna's on December 17th. The FDA has said it could take weeks before any approval. If the FDA allows emergency use, Moderna expects to have 20 million doses, enough for 10 million people, ready for the U.S. by year's end. Pfizer expects enough doses for 12.5 million Americans. But with initial supplies limited, the U.S. government says the majority of Americans will have to wait until the second or third quarter of next year to get a vaccine.
The light is at the end of the tunnel, but the American people have to do the right things until we get that vaccine widely distributed. Wear a mask, avoid indoor crowded spaces, all the things you know.
A CDC advisory board meets Tuesday to decide on formal recommendations about who will get the vaccine first. Lindsay Thies, Newsy, Denver.
For those of you who are too afraid to ask, no, we don't have any Cyber Monday deals on ITL merch. Sorry. Something strange is going on in Utah, and what's funny, it probably still won't crack the top 10 list of weirdest things in 2020. Here's what's trending. Utah public safety workers discovered an object while flying over Red Rock Country more than a week ago. It turned out to be a metal monolith installed in the ground in a pretty remote area, and now it's gone.
Who does this kind of stuff?
What's a monolith? Don't worry, I had to Google it too, and we have some images to save you the trouble. This monolith was a three-sided metal structure about 10 feet tall and embedded into the rock. And again, it was in the middle of nowhere with no trace of who put it there. Obvious questions. Where did it come from? Who removed it? Is it our overlord? Officials are going with the logical story that the monolith was a piece of art, possibly by John McCracken, an artist who really dug geometric shapes. But there's no way to be sure since he passed in 2011. His son did say that McCracken told him that he would like to leave his work in remote places to be discovered later, but officials do not claim responsibility for removing the monolith. If that ain't good enough for you, I encourage you to go down the Reddit rabbit hole and decide for yourself while keeping that third eye open for the truth. You like stories? If so, you're not alone. Add Spotify to the list of platforms testing out a stories-related feature like the ones you've seen on Snapchat, IG, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, etc. Here's what it looks like. Let's say you mosey on over to Spotify's Christmas Hits playlist. It's after Thanksgiving, so it's okay. You tap on the icon and voila, you've got singer Ava Max talking about her song Christmas Without You. For music nerds like me, this could be a cool feature if you're not already fatigued by stories, that is. We should note that this isn't Spotify's first foray into in-app features like this one. Last year, Spotify rolled out editorial storylines as a part of the release of Billie Eilish's album, When We All Fall Asleep, Where Do We Go? Spotify told the outlet Engadget that this is just a test and that they don't have any news for a wider rollout yet. David Prowse, the man who played Darth Vader in the original Star Wars trilogy, passed away at the age of 85. His management company made the announcement Sunday. For those of you who don't know, Vader has always been a team effort on film. Hollywood legend James Earl Jones has done the voiceovers, but originally inside the costume was Prowse, an extremely jacked Brit. Honestly, I didn't realize Vader was so yoked until subsequent viewings of the original trilogy. You could just tell he's swole under all that gothy attire. Prowse was a bodybuilder who was named British weightlifting champion several times back in the 60s. He used his physique to help him land movie and TV roles as monsters, villains, a bodyguard, and then the big baddie, Darth Vader, in 1977. He was also awarded an MBE, or Member of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire, for this Power Rangers-esque British road safety video.
Think I better have a word with those two.
On Twitter, actor Mark Hamill added that among his various accolades, Prowse loved his fans as much as they loved him. QAnon, the conspiracy theory that says, among other things, that pedophiles are trying to take down President Trump, became a pretty prominent part of our lexicon this year. Newsy's Sasha Ingber tells us about a former hacker who is stepping out of the shadows to investigate some of QAnon's biggest supporters.
I'm here to stop this horrible nightmare that I see as a next generation version of what I started.
You may not know the name Aubrey Cottle, but you've probably heard of the hacker collective he helped create.
This is the public face of Anonymous, the shadowy group behind the hacking attack on the Federal Reserve.
Today he's fighting a different battle, which, like Anonymous, was born online and through anonymity. QAnon.
As far as the brainwashing and general disinfo campaigns that are the core of QAnon go, I understand all of that implicitly because I helped write the playbook for it in the first place.
The conspiracy theory claims a group of elite pedophiles are plotting against President Trump. Its followers have been linked to real-life violence. Cottle says as part of his efforts, he's investigating a key figure, Jim Watkins, the owner of a message board where their purported official Q has posted.
Cottle recently tipped a news organization that later reported Watkins was tied to child pornography domains, an allegation he denies. Cottle also says he's investigating suspected QAnon support by foreign governments and that he gets information from friends at Twitter, Facebook, and Google. But the vigilante tactics can be controversial.
I'm doing a lot of stuff that I can't legally disclose.
Several anonymous hackers have been arrested over the years.
I do think that these current anonymous activists will do a good job in unearthing any dirt that exists among those QAnon movers and shakers. Whether that's enough to take down a movement that has now taken hold in a kind of grassroots sense is a bigger question, and I think that will be quite hard to do.
Gabriella Coleman, an expert on Anonymous, calls Cottle's mission a sort of redemption for the 33-year-old Canadian.
He was part of the kind of troll group that was really attached to the name Anonymous as a phenomenon for harassment and trolling.
The attack on the Epilepsy Foundation in March 2008, that's probably one of my biggest regrets. We basically found some exploits on the Epilepsy Foundation forums and then covered it in seizure-inducing images. Not my best moment.
When did you decide to stop being anonymous?
The week the Christchurch, New Zealand shooting happened. So August 2019.
A gunman with an automatic weapon has opened fire on a mosque in central Christchurch.
The attack left 51 people dead and pushed Cottle to think of ways to help ex-QAnon followers get back into society.
It opened his eyes to the consequences of hate online.
You feel it right here. It's actually really painful. You hear the stories of all the families out there that have lost a family member to it, or even, people taking their own lives, or they're taking other people's lives. That just increases my level of urgency of dealing with this.
From Washington, Sasha Ingber, Newsy.
Quick intermission, and then we're back to get all up in your personal business. Dating during the pandemic has been tough for many people. Personally, I don't know anything about that, but I know folks who do. Virus concerns and quarantining have kept folks from getting out there and meeting new people, of course. While some dating apps have reported an increase in users, experts say the apps aren't just being used to form romantic connections. National reporter Jessica Paris has more.
COVID's been terrible for the world, but as far as dating app industry, it's been great because people, like I said, still want to have that connection with other people.
Jonathan Kirkland is the head of brand marketing for BLK, Match Group's largest dating app for Black singles with more than 4 million downloads nationwide. Kirkland says the pandemic has boosted their app's usage, with many people still yearning for that human connection. Specifically, Kirkland says the Black Lives Matter movement has also made their role especially important in the Black community.
We took it a step further, and we're actually using the app to find different ways to engage with our audience. So whether that's around, timely social issues, political issues, things affecting the community specifically, we create those engaging experiences for people to still sound off and have those broader conversations. So it's not just a one-to-one connection, but a one-to-many connection, and using the platform to really amplify those voices.
University of Denver psychologist Dr. Howard Markman says dating apps have the potential to play a bigger, more positive positive role in single people's mental health during the pandemic. Dr. Markman is conducting a study that so far shows many people aren't using dating apps for romance.
They're, sometimes connecting with people, very rarely meeting people, very rarely forming a relationship. And I feel, and we feel, my class feels, and other classes, that people could be using dating apps as a way of connecting.
Dr. Markman says virtual friendships are crucial right now.
They can use it to find a friend that they could have a romantic relationship in the future, but they could actually get to know the person first. We call it like the counter hookup culture.
It's kind of more than just dating, really connecting on any level.
Exactly. And as we look to 2021, I think the trend that you'll see a lot is more of these dating apps going beyond just the core product of dating.
In fact, BLK says it is continuing to introduce new features and engagement opportunities on their app to keep people connected on social issues important to them, helping people maintain a sense of connection and community as the COVID-19 pandemic continues into 2021. I'm Jessica Paris reporting.
Frontline workers have been, and I don't mean this lightly, putting the whole country on their backs. During this pandemic, we've talked about the risks to frontline workers, lack of PPE, overwhelmed hospitals, etc. Now the government is looking to extend a helping hand to frontline workers who have held us down since day one by paying the cost of their higher education. National reporter Kai Beach has more.
They have hand sanitizer stations throughout the whole airport.
Nathaniel Hawkins is a security guard at a major airport in Detroit, Michigan.
To make sure that the customers are 6 feet away.
When the COVID crisis first hit, his job details evolved.
At the height of the coronavirus pandemic, Delta trained us to take the temperatures of all the employees that come in and out of the terminal on a day-to-day basis.
For risking his own health to keep others safe.
And this is where the Delta employees can go get tested.
Hawkins has been rewarded with a chance to go to college, tuition free.
With the scholarship that they're going to give me, is going to give me an opportunity to go back to school.
Hawkins is one of many recipients of Futures for Frontliners.
It's never too late to take a step forward.
A state program in Michigan that offers workers tuition-free community college if they worked in essential industries during the early parts of the pandemic.
This is just one small way that we've worked to offer a thank you to those essential workers that put themselves in harm's way in the beginning of the pandemic.
Carrie Ebersol is with the Michigan Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity, the agency in charge of Futures for Frontliners. Her team received more than 85,000 applications during the first 9 weeks of this program's launch. The money comes from federal dollars through the CARES Act. Ebersol says it's a price tag well worth it.
And my father would always say, this is something, if you have your education, no one can ever take it away from you.
The plan for this program is to help frontline workers receive better education, which in theory will help them land better jobs and bigger paychecks, and also positively impact their local economies.
This is about helping give them the skilled workforce they need to be successful and compete in today's economy.
An economy that has seen unemployment numbers fluctuate nationwide.
They're taking all the necessary steps. They have the hand sanitizer.
Hawkins plans on pursuing a career in criminal justice with the education provided by Futures for Frontliners.
So I would encourage anyone that's chasing a dream to chase it and never to give up.
Other states have reached out to Michigan about doing something similar. The deadline to apply for this program is December 31st. I'm Kai Beach reporting.
If you haven't done so already, feel free to hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag #NewsyInTheLoop. I have eaten my weight in leftovers, but I'm still starved for attention. Surrogacy, an agreement where one person bears a child for another person or persons, is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Experts say the market is expected to exceed $27.5 billion by 2025, and that'll be driven by people suffering from infertility issues. And while the industry is growing, the pandemic is putting a wrinkle in the ability of people to gain custody of their newborns. Newsy's Bianca Fascini explains.
There's a unique problem for the surrogacy industry amid the coronavirus pandemic. Newborn babies are stranded.
I couldn't imagine how his parents felt, being all the way in China.
Heather Taylor, who lives in Arizona, was a surrogate for a couple in China. She gave birth to their baby boy in June, months after COVID-19 disrupted international travel.
They didn't see Jasper until he was 6 weeks old.
Taylor's story isn't uncommon. The fertility clinic she worked with in California has been looking after dozens of babies whose parents haven't been able to enter the U.S. to take custody of them.
We have one surrogate who is still taking care of the baby, and the baby's almost about 6 months old.
The clinic has been renting nearby apartments and providing care with nannies until the parents can unite with their newborns. Those accommodations have upped the price of surrogacy, which already costs tens of thousands of dollars, but it's just one of many issues.
Whether they can get their passports, whether they can get their visas, whether the offices to issue the visas are open.
Despite the challenges, EDSI is still accepting international clients, and the surrogacy industry is expected to remain lucrative over the next 5 years. But some experts are urging caution.
Our COVID advisory is against entering into international arrangements during this time.
The concern goes beyond stranded babies. Some say there's a power imbalance between the surrogates and the parents, like when it comes to signing the contract, laying out stipulations of the pregnancy.
These issues really are reflective of many challenges and difficulties that existed prior to the pandemic.
In the U.S., surrogacy law varies by state, and there's no international regulation of it. So the surrogacy industry could be one of the few that doesn't change at all after the pandemic. Bianca Fascini, Newsy, Washington.
That's it for us, gang. As always, thanks for watching. And a special thanks to my colleague, Lauren Magarino, who held it down while I was away. We'll be back for more in The Loop tomorrow. Same time, same place. Top stories from Newsy are headed your way right now.